The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our discussion on creating sales tax codes in Design Manager. My name is Brad, and I'll be hosting the demonstration today. If you have questions during the webinar, feel free to enter them into the questions pane on your GoToWebinar panel. If the question is outside of the scope of today's discussion, please email them to support@designmanager.com. Lastly, if you miss a portion of the webinar or want to review any of our past discussions, go to our YouTube channel at Design Manager Inc., Design Manager INC. And here you can get a complete listing of all of our topics, including webinars, tutorials, etc. You can see our quick start. There's our tutorials, project management and accounting courses, and there's all of our weekly webinars as well. As I mentioned today, we'll be discussing how to properly configure your sales tax codes in Design Manager to ensure that you're properly charging sales tax to your clients. I do want to preface the conversation that I am not a sales tax professional by any means, nor is anyone at Design Manager. You will always want to confer with your tax professional or accountant to ensure that you have the proper sales tax rates, tax responsibility, etc. that are going to be necessary to correctly charge, record, and ultimately remit your sales tax. That being said, there are many aspects to consider in order to properly configure Design Manager to record your sales tax. What states are you required to record and file sales tax? If you're recording for multiple states, does your accounting professional want you to record each state in a different account? Within a given state, are there additional taxes at the county or parish or even city level on top of the state tax rate? Let's begin with sales tax account or accounts. If you're only conducting business in one state, you only need a single sales tax account. If you're working in multiple states that are requiring you to remit sales tax, you may want to have individual sales tax accounts for each state, but you're not required to do so. So we're going to need an account to which we'll record our sales tax. So we'll go to our Accounting tab, Accounts, and we can see we have a sales tax collected account already created. Now, sales tax accounts will always be liability accounts, in that you're going to be required to remit payment for the tax collected at some point in the future. Our sample company has a generic sales tax account, as we only had a tax presence in New Jersey. For our demonstration, let's imagine that our company will now be required to collect and remit tax in Pennsylvania as well. Further, our accountant would, in fact, like us to record the Pennsylvania and New Jersey taxes into separate accounts. So let's go ahead and edit our existing sales tax account, and let's say NJ, or New Jersey sales tax collected. And we'll go ahead and create a second sales tax account for our Pennsylvania. PA sales tax collected is our name, and we'll select our type as liability. Click OK, and now we have two of our sales tax, our New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Great, now we need to actually create our sales tax code for Pennsylvania. And again, we do so on our Accounting tab, under Lists and Glossaries, Sales Tax Codes. And we can see we have one for our out-of-state already created for us. That's for any activity that we're in a state that we don't have a tax presence. And there's our existing one for New Jersey. To create a third tax code, let's click our Add button. And we'll simply make the tax code of PA, the name, we'll use Commonwealth of PA, and the state abbreviation. The sales tax report in Design Manager will group all sales tax codes first by the abbreviation, so you can easily see how much you owe the state as a whole if you have multiple tax codes within a given state. For Pennsylvania, as an example, there are different rates for Philadelphia County, Allegheny County, and other areas throughout the state. This tax code will be used to record taxable and non-taxable sales for any area not in Philadelphia or Allegheny County. Then we can create tax codes for the Philly and Allegheny locales separately if needed. Taxable defaults. You must determine what goods and services are considered taxable by the tax authority. Again, this is something you must review with your accounting professional to ensure you're taxing your clients properly. Now, besides merchandise and time, the other component types are completely user definable, and tax issues is one of the reasons we allow them to be as such. You can configure your component types off of your file, company information and settings, and on your company information window, click Advanced to get to the company advanced options window, and then go to the General tab. And here you can see where you can actually configure the component types to suit your needs. For example, certain areas in the country allow different rates, perhaps, for freight versus design fee, and you would need certain separate component types to record those. Again, Design Manager can easily handle that. Other areas even distinguish between what is considered freight and what is considered shipping. So those areas would have two component types, one for freight, one for shipping, etc. Now, it is important to uncheck any of the taxable defaults for the particular good or service that you are not going to collect tax for, because within Design Manager, these taxable options default down to each of your projects and further down to the components themselves. What do I mean by that? Well, if we look at our projects window, go to the defaults tab here, advanced markup, we can see there's our taxable settings for the Carter's Pennington Home project. So whenever we add items and components for that project, this is where the taxable settings default from. And you can see that right on the component window itself. So it is important to make sure that your taxable settings are indeed set properly. Further, certain reports and documents in Design Manager will consider a component taxable based upon the taxable setting, regardless of the tax percentage. So you may have a tax percentage of 0, but are still selecting, freight as taxable. That will come up in certain reports as a taxable entity, even if it is a 0%. So again, very important to have those set properly from the get-go. Lastly, changing the sales tax code on a project does not automatically update those taxable settings. So if you come back and have to do it retroactively, you would need then to update the projects themselves for a particular tax code. We're going to need an account associated with the tax code to record all of the activity going in and out of the sales tax account. And let's use our new PA tax collected to hold our Pennsylvania sales tax. And now we need to add what we call a sales tax rule, or how should Design Manager calculate tax and at what percentages. So we click the Add button as indicated by the green plus sign. We can add authority name or a description, and this could be just Commonwealth of PA. And Pennsylvania is fairly straightforward in that it is 6% for all goods and services. Click OK, and we're all set. Also, if we did need to change the percentages, let's say that, design fee is different than merchandise, you can override that even though Design Manager does default it from the merchandise to make your data entry as fast and as accurate as possible. So you can input any rates that you need. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take one of the projects that I've already added into Design Manager and set it to our new Pennsylvania tax code. So we'll go back to our project tab, projects window. We'll select the Hilson Pocono home, and we'll change the sales tax code from out of state to our new Pennsylvania. And let's go ahead and add an item as an example to see how Design Manager calculates the tax for us. Click on our items button to get to our specifications window, and we'll add a new item for our Hilson Pocono home. Simple sales tax for PA. Click on our add button to get to our component, which is where we can see our taxable default as we saw before. Let's use a very simple example. How about $100 of cost? We're marking that up 100% and selling it at $200 to the client. If we click OK, just like that, Design Manager is calculating the tax for us. And we can review it quite easily on the pricing tab of the item window. So we see we have our merchandise at $200, and we're calculating our sales tax at $12 for a total of $212. And as far as I understand, 200 times 6% is 12, plus 200 indeed equals 212. And now we can actually make an invoice for our new item. Let's go to our accounting tab, client invoices, add an invoice, pop in our Hilson project. If we select or tag our simple sales tax example, we can see Design Manager separating it out for us here. Print and post. And there's our very simple example. Sales tax is in the subtotal region, of course. And if we accept our invoice, now if we go to our accounts receivable reports, our sales tax report, which I've conveniently added to our favorites menu simply by selecting the add to favorites button so I can access it easily. We can see our invoice listed. Let's make that a bit bigger with all the particular information we would need to fill out our sales tax report for the Pennsylvania Commonwealth. Now, that's a very straightforward example. Let's create a more complicated tax scenario. I mentioned Philadelphia County before. The County of Philadelphia levies an additional 2% on top of the 6% already charged by the PA Commonwealth. So we're going to need a different tax code for any residents in Philadelphia County. So we'll go back to our sales tax codes. Let's add another one. Let's call it Philly or Philadelphia. Name it Philadelphia County. Our tax abbreviation again should be PA, so we can have all of our tax for Pennsylvania as a state summated for us. We'll use the same Pennsylvania tax collected liability account. We'll keep all of our taxable defaults set. Click our add button. And our sales tax rule, again, Commonwealth of PA, 6%. That takes care of the state. But now we're going to add a second rule for County of Philadelphia at 2%. Now, people often ask, well, why don't you just make a single rule for 8%? Well, this way, we're constantly taxing the state at the same rate throughout all of our tax codes. And further, as we'll see in a few moments, by having different rules, we can manipulate how the sales tax is displayed on our invoices and such. Plus, if Philadelphia County changes or the state changes, we can manipulate each rule independently of one or the other. And lastly, if the rule becomes more complex, as we'll see in our next example, it's easier to change it if the rules are separated for us. Click OK, and there is our Philadelphia County sales tax code. And let's go set one of our projects to that new code for our Philadelphia condo. Great. And let's add an item here as an example. Add a new item. PA tax plus local Philly tax. Click our add button and we'll use the same numbers. We'll do $100 cost, marked up at 100%. Our taxable default is already set and our sell price is $200 for the client. Click OK. Review our pricing tab and we can see our price of $200 and our tax at $16. And that makes sense. Again, if we had $200 and 6% for the state for 12, and then another 2% for Philadelphia, yields us our $16 as we would imagine. And let's go ahead and make an invoice for our Philadelphia example as well. Back on client invoices, we'll add a new one. Select our item, transaction description if desired, Philly tax example. Print and post. Modern format is my preferred format. And there's our subtotal and our tax listed for us. If we accept it here, let's review our sales tax report again. Back to our AR reports, sales tax. We already have our date range configured for February. Fantastic. And now we can see Design Manager is going to page break or have a new set of pages created per tax code. So we do have our state of Pennsylvania. There's our tax code of our original Commonwealth. And now we have a second page for our Philadelphia County. But we are totaling up our PA total so far as well. That's why having the tax abbreviation is quite handy. And we can also see by having two rules, as we discussed, it breaks it out independently on our sales tax report for us. So we can see exactly what portions are going to the state and to the local municipality of Philadelphia in this case. Great. Okay, let's take an even more complicated example to really show the flexibility of sales tax codes in Design Manager. As we saw with Pennsylvania and Philadelphia County, more and more frequently, local municipalities around the country are adding additional surcharge taxes on top of any state sales tax. Florida, as a great example, has local discretionary taxes for many of the counties in the state. Let's take Nassau County as an example. The state of Florida collects 6%, while Nassau County collects an additional 1%. But I'm going to take it in even a more complicated example. Let's imagine that Nassau only collects on the price of merchandise up to $5,000. And further, they want to charge that surtax on each unit of merchandise. That's generally not considered quote unquote a set. So a dining room table and chairs may be a set, but 4 pieces of individual artwork were not. And this is another reason why having your accounting professional help you decipher the tax code is very important, as all of these little minutiae really need to get clarified. So let's create another tax code on our sales tax code glossary. We'll call it NAS, and we'll do Nassau County. We'll use FL for Florida as our abbreviation in this case. We'll set all of our taxable defaults again to everything. I did go ahead and actually create a Florida sales tax code, account already, so we'll use that one in this case. And we'll click the Add button to enter in our rules. So our first rule will be state of Florida, or what have you, Florida Department of Revenue, etc. And everything here is going to be 6%. I'm going to show you how also that we can separate our tax distributions on the invoice by using the print separate on invoice option. We'll click OK, and let's add our rule for Nassau County. Nassau County, 1%. And what I said, that we're going to tax everything up to 5,000. Okay. So we're going to use the below option and say everything below and including 5,000 will be taxed at the 1%. And it's based on unit price. And I want it separated on the invoice. As you can see, very, very sophisticated calculations can be input into Design Manager. Click OK. And we're ready to go. Let's go back to our projects. And as you can imagine, I already have a project ready for our new Nassau code. Let's go add some sample items here. Okay, for our first example, Let's do item is more than $5,000. Click our add button. And let's say that this is a $7,000 item. Oh, that's no, let's do, how about 3,500? So we mark it up to 7,000. If we click OK and go to our pricing tab, we see the tax is being calculated at $470. Well, how did we get there? Let's get our calculator up. So the state takes 6% on the entire 7,000. So 7,000 times 0.06 gets us to our 420. But Nassau is only taking 1% up to 5,000. So 5,000 times 0.01 is 50. Add that back to our 420, and lo and behold, we get 470. So Design Manager is handling that fairly complicated transaction perfectly. Okay, how about adding another item? Let's try one. Item is less than 5,000. Back to our component window. And let's say our unit cost here is 2,000 and our price to the client will be 4,000. Click OK, pricing tab, and we see we're calculating $280 of tax. Well, that makes, again, sense. So we have $2,000, pardon me, we have $4,000 at 6% for the state at $240, and then the entire 4,000 has 1% for Nassau for $40. Add that back to our 240, and we come up with our 280. A very simple example, and again, Design Manager is handling it perfectly. Now, let's try the most complex scenario. Let's use one where we're going to have an example of the calculate on unit option, whereby multiple items not considered a set are going to receive the surcharge separately. So let's add 4 objects not considered a set. Quantity of 4, this is very important because this is how Design Manager indicates if the item has a particular unit, in this case 4 units separately. And let's say that each one of these is $1,500. Extended cost is $6,000 and a sell price to the client of $12,000. Click OK. Oops. Go back in there and let's take a look at our pricing tab. $840. So let's see how we came up with that. First, the state is going to have 12,000 at 6% for 720. But since each of these are individual units, and each unit, of which there are 4, would then be 3,000, since the total price is 12, each unit would be 3,000. Each unit is subject to the 1% rule. So then we'd have 3,000 times the 1%, so it's 30 for each unit, times the 4 is 120. Add back our 720, and we get our 840, which is exactly what Design Manager is calculating as well. And if we go ahead and invoice all of those items simultaneously, I'll use my tag all, Florida sales tax. Click OK, and let's go ahead and print out a copy. You can see our 3 items. Very important that we show the unit quantity and unit price for our 4 objects not considered a set, but also notice I'm showing an example of having the tax shown separately on invoice. So now the client can see what the amount for the state is and for Nassau County as well. And many clients may require that or ask for that as a service. And Design Manager is one of the few softwares available that can do so. Close and accept. And if we go back to our sales tax report now, we're going to have at least 3 pages starting with Florida. And conveniently, we can see what the state is getting and what Nassau County is getting. And then we still have our Pennsylvania Commonwealth and our Philadelphia County and all of the Pennsylvania being summated and a total for all authorities as well. And all of that brings us to the end of our discussion today on configuring sales tax codes. Properly configuring your sales tax codes really is critical to charging your clients the proper sales tax. I tried to show several examples from the very simple to the much more complex and how Design Manager can handle those tax calculations, how to properly set up your taxable defaults so your projects and components have the right tax setting right from the get-go, showing your sales tax separately on the invoice and reviewing the sales tax report as well. And with that, I thank everyone for joining the discussion today, and I hope you attend another of our free webinars in the future. Take care. Have a great day.